I go to refuge to the Buddha, my deeply awakened mind, the living source of understanding and compassion, to which must be fully cultivated to be fully known. I go to refuge to the Dharma, the path of mindful living, leading to healing, joy, and enlightenment, the way of peace, which must be cultivated to be fully known. I go to refuge of the Sangha, the loving and supportive community of practice, realizing harmony, awareness, and liberation, which must be fully cultivated to be known fully. I am aware that the three jewels are within my heart. I vow to realize them. I vow to understand living beings and their suffering. I vow to cultivate loving kindness and compassion and practice joy and equanimity. I vow to live simply and sanely, content with few possessions, and to keep my body healthy. I vow to let go of all worry and anxiety in order to be light and free. I am aware that I owe so much to my parents, teachers, friends, and all beings. I vow to be worthy of their trust, to practice wholeheartedly, so that understanding and compassion will flower, and I can help living beings free from their suffering. May the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha support my efforts. Nathan is going to do his beautiful rendition of the Heart Sutra.
Whoops. The Mahaprajna Paramita Hridaya Sutra. The Bodhisattva of great compassion from the deep practice of prajna, paramita, perceived the emptiness of all five skandhas and delivered all beings from their suffering. O Shariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form. Form is emptiness, emptiness form. The same is true of feeling, thought, impulse, and consciousness. O Shariputra, all dharmas are empty. They are not born nor annihilated. They are not defiled nor immaculate. They do not increase nor decrease. So in emptiness, no form, no feeling, no thought, no impulse, no consciousness, no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. No form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or objects of mind. No realm of sight, no realm of consciousness, no ignorance, nor extinction of ignorance, no old age and death, nor extinction of them, no suffering, no cause of suffering, no cease from suffering, no path to lead out of suffering, no knowledge, no attainment, no realization, for there is nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva holds on to nothing but prajna, paramita. Therefore the mind is clear of any delusive hindrance. Without hindrance there is no fear. Away from all perverted views, one reaches final nirvana. All Buddhas of past, present, and future, through faith in prajna, paramita, attain to the highest perfect enlightenment. Know then the prajna, paramita, is the great Dharani, the radiant peerless mantram, the utmost supreme mantram, which is capable of allaying all pain. This is true beyond all doubt. Proclaim now the highest wisdom, the prajna, paramita. Gate, gate, hara gate, hara samgate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, hara gate, hara samgate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, paragate, harasamgate, bodhisvaha. The Mahaprajna Paramita Predaya Sutra.
Good morning. I would like to thank all of you for tuning in today. And Nathan, thank you for your beautiful voice. It's always nice hearing or seeing somebody do what you can do a lot better than I can do it. Thank you. And thank you for the tech team for making all this possible today. As most of you know, I'm Soto Zen Buddhist. And in our tradition, February 15th is a date we celebrate the Buddha entering nirvana. So today I'm going to talk about the Buddha's last days. As with much of Buddha's life, we have stories. Some of these stories have been passed down, some up to 2,500 years. Some of the stories are great teachings, and some of the stories are just these fantastic stories of wonderful, fanciful events. I am not going to debate the truthfulness with a capital T of anything I say today. of the events because the teachings are here. And sometimes I just tell myself, if this has been memorized and passed down for 2,500 years, I am totally not qualified to say it's not correct. And in my old temple in Nebraska, once a year, we take out a beautiful reclining Buddha. I'm sure you've seen it. It's where he's leaning on one arm, laying on his right side, and his 2 feet are on top of each other. That is the Parinirvāna Buddha. And we took it out of this beautiful cedar case with the red felt lining, and we put it on the altar. That's the only time we ever used it, only time we ever put it out. I do not have reclining Buddha on my altar. My Buddha is still standing strong in his teaching stance, but I do have an apple and hot tea as offerings to the Buddha today, because that's what we did. And as part of this, I'll call it a celebration, special service, we chanted a very long sutra. The MAHＡPARINIRVāNA Sutra. And since we only chanted it once a year, it was always really clumsy. And last Friday in my Just Sit Zendo, we chanted it. And you know, I'm still clumsy at that long sutra. Luckily, I had people that weren't dyslexic that could read it along with me, so I wasn't stumbling by myself. But it's a beautiful sutra. And it has a lot to say. So today, I'm going to share some of my thoughts on this day. I was having trouble sleeping last night, so I Googled Parinirvāna Sutra. And Norm Fisher, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Norm Fisher. He's a great poet, author. I listened to 2 out of 3 of his hour-long discussions on this sutra. So let it be known, I could talk a lot longer on it. He spoke 3 hours on this sutra. Anyway, I am not going to speak 3 hours. Hopefully I can keep it short so we have time to discuss it. The first story I want to talk about that's associated with his last talks was given before he was really ill. But you know that he was thinking about it. He was not feeling well. And he knew the time was coming that he'd leave. And he was in Vulture Peak. And he told Ananda, go have everyone that lives close by come to the assembly hall because I want to talk to you. And what did he say that day? He gave us the 7 methods to prevent the teaching and Sangha from declining. This feels really important to me. It did not seem to his Sangha members that this would be his last talk because he was still healthy and feeling good. But you can tell the Buddha was thinking about what his Sangha was doing what his Sangha would do after he was no longer around. So these 7 things are: 1, meet frequently in groups to study and discuss the Dharma. 2, always gather and disperse in the spirit of cooperation. 3, respect and follow the precepts. 4, respect and follow the elders. 5, live in a pure and simple life, unswayed by desire and greed. 6, cherish a calm and peaceful life. 7, and this I think is a capstone, dwell in mindfulness in order to live in peace, joy, and liberation. We must become a refuge and support for friends along the path. If you live by these 7 practices, the Dharma will flourish and the Sangha will not fall into decline. I could talk about these 7 items for an hour, but I'm not going to. Read them and study them on your own. And if you look at them, not much of it was about how you are alone. It was how you interact with each other. Buddha wasn't concerned that I would survive. It was that we would survive. And even though we only meet on Zoom, and this is so nice. We are so lucky. Because I can only see 9 of you on my screen right now. But I know there's another screen. And we are here together as a Sangha. And that's important. As Dogen would say, look at this closely and study it well. So, and that's something to remember. Look at these things and study them. So, anyway, at this point, Buddha was teaching about 45 years. After he gave this talk on Vulture Peak, then he got really sick. And he told Ananda, I'm dying. Ananda started crying and said, you can't die. You can't die yet. You have to at least give one last talk to all your monks. And Buddha, in response, said, Ananda, what do you expect of me? I love that line. That's a great student-teacher moment then. We love our teachers. Our teachers are important in our life. All of our teachers. But at some point, we break that relationship. One of us dies, one of us leaves the practice, and sometimes you just need to move on and find a new teacher, which is very common in Zen. What do you do when your teacher is no longer there to guide you? Do you quickly run and find a new teacher? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But what do we expect of our teachers? Buddha's reply to Ananda, which is one of the most quoted lines of this sutra, is, Ananda, you have to be a light, a lamp unto yourself. You have to be a lamp unto yourself. Ananda, so many times I reminded you that with birth there is death, which comes together also must separate. All dharmas are impermanent, and we should not be attached to them. It's like everything I say, it's like, that's good teaching. And it's like, yes, this is an important day to remember. His final teachings were important. And then Buddha thought a little bit and he said, it wouldn't be right for me to pass on without finally addressing the Sangha. Let me bend the sickness down again and keep on until my allotted time ends. So by strong effort, he bent the sickness down, he was well. So then he promised Ananda, I'll be around for 3 more months. And if I was really sick on death's door and I said, okay, I'll try to hang on for 3 months, what would I do? I probably wouldn't travel around and see all my Sanghas. So what he did in those 3 months is travel around to give a final goodbye to a lot of his Sanghas. That's a strong teacher, strong teachings. Towards the end of this 3-month cycle, this 3 months time of travel, Buddha went to have dinner with a guy named Kunda. He was a blacksmith a blacksmith's son, which means he wasn't of high rank. And he was so happy to have Buddha and his group of monks come visit. Spread out a huge bunch of food for them and made a very special dish for the Buddha. Sometimes I hear it translated as being a meat dish, sometimes mushrooms, sometimes truffles, but it was a great dish. Buddha ate a little bit of it and called Kunda aside and said, you need to bury this. Only an enlightened person can eat this dish. Bury it and let it go as an offering. Buddha knew it was bad. So he left, and then he got very ill. And as the Buddha realized how ill he was, and this was his final illness, he called Ananda and said, there's two most important meals you can eat in your whole life. One is the last meal before enlightenment. In Buddha's case, that would have been the milk and rice. The second most important meal is the last meal you eat before entering nirvana. The last meal you eat on this earth. So be sure to let Kunda know that he should feel nothing but happiness for serving me that last meal. That is kindness. Because he knew that Kunda would feel bad about poisoning the Buddha. And it's like, make sure he knows that he should be privileged to serve me my last meal. So then, I'm going to read some of the sutra straight on because it's easier to just read it. And then the Exalted One with his great many Sangha members went to the salad grove of Malas. At that time, the twin salad trees were blooming out of season, and their flowers were dropped and covered the Tathagata in reverence to the successor of the Buddhas of old. Heavenly Mandaravana flowers, sorry about mutilating that flower's name, and sandalwood powder came down from the sky and descended on the Tathagata. Heavenly music sounded and songs were sung, all in reverence to the successor of the Buddhas of old. To have trees blooming out of season is a really common thing that happens when great things happen. You see it in all sorts of literature. And it's a way of saying what is happening is so amazing and wonderful that the earth itself has to say, this is special. Take notice. If you walk out in the winter and your cherry tree is blooming, you know that something special is happening. But the Buddha had a different take on this. What he said was, now, not in this way, Ananda. This is not the way I should be honored and revered. The Tathagata is most truly honored by the brother or sister or devout man or the devout woman who walks according to the precepts, who fulfills them, whose life is in accord with them. Such people rightly honor and revere the Tathagata. Therefore, Ananda, be consistently at one with the precepts. Walk according with them and fulfill them in your daily life. In other words, Buddha would rather have us walk in the precepts than having trees and drop their blossoms on them and sandalwood coming in. Because it's more important that we follow the precepts, that we walk in the precepts. Then the Venerable One, Ananda, left the room and he went into the other room and leaned against the door weeping. Oh, I am still not completely awake. I have not worked out my own salvation. And the master who has been so kind is about to pass away. I'm going to say a little bit about Ananda here. Most of us know who Ananda is. Ananda was the Buddha's cousin. Supposedly he was born on the day of Buddha's awakening. And as soon as Ananda came of age, he joined the Buddha. He was the Buddha's constant companion. He was his assistant. He did a lot for the Buddha. He was the one that had talked the Buddha into ordaining women. Ananda was one that designed the robes, so all of Buddha's followers would know who the Buddha's followers were. You need a special robe. So this robe was designed by Ananda. And also Ananda could memorize every single thing the Buddha said, which is why when you open a sutra, it starts out, "Thus I have heard," because that is Ananda saying what the Buddha said. But the scriptures all say, even though Ananda was so close to the Buddha and remembered every single thing the Buddha said, he was not enlightened. I'm not crazy about the terminology not being enlightened, but Ananda definitely didn't get it. And he knew he didn't understand. What is it that his followers know about the Buddha that I don't know? And that is where Ananda's deep grief came from. And at times I can just picture walking out of the room and you can't even go into the next room. You just lean on the door and weep out of deep grief. That is such a vivid image of pure grief. My teacher is dying and I don't understand it yet. So Buddha said, "Where's Ananda? Where is my constant companion? He is not here with me when I die. He has to be here." So they went and got him. And Ananda came and stood by his side. And this is what the Buddha said to Ananda. "Enough, Ananda. Do not be troubled. Do not weep. Have I not already told you many times that this is the nature of all things, even those most near and dear to us, to pass away, that we must leave them? Divide ourselves from them, sever ourselves from them. Everything born must die. All beings carry within them the seeds of dissolution. For a long time, Ananda, you have been very close to me. You have been kind, good, and loving in thought, word, and deed. This has never varied and is beyond measure. You have done well, Ananda. Put forth great effort, and you too will soon be free. And you and some other disciples, Ananda, the thought may arise, the words of the master has ceased. We no longer have a teacher. But that is not so, Ananda. The Dharma, the rules of the order, which I have set down for you, will be your teachers when I am gone." Then he said to everyone, "Friends, impermanence is inherent in all conditioned things. Work out your own salvation with diligence." And these were the last words of the Tathagata. So, be responsible for yourself. Follow the precepts. Did all of this really happen? I don't know. But there are many great teachings in this sutra. And what can we take from this last teaching of the Buddha? What can we bring into our daily lives? Because that's basically what we do with all the sutras. How can we bring it into our daily lives? How can we live how can we make this sutra part of our daily practice. In all Soto Zen zendos, where we practice meditation, we have something called a han. It's a wooden block. Mine's hanging right over there. On our hans, we have written, we must know the great matter of birth and death. Do not waste time. That wooden block is hit, bunk, 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 as a call to come and sit. Come and sit in meditation. And every time you hear that han, it means we cannot waste time. When it was time for Buddha to end his life, to take his last breath, his last heartbeat, last food and sleep, he went in peace. And he wanted his companions to accept it in peace. This is important, because when it comes right down to it, what do we really want in life? To live and die in peace. Man, if I could have pure peace, I'd be happy. And I can't think of anything that most people would not be more happy with. I think my grammar was goofy there, but you understand. We're all looking for that great peace. This is a great matter of life and death. I would like to sit for 10 minutes and then open it up for discussion, because I'm afraid if we start discussing, we won't end up sitting. So let's sit for 10 minutes. I would like to open the floor for discussion. And questions, comments, answers, anything you want to say.
And I'll stop the recording now as well. So.
Shuji,